Maya Sand, who, with a determined glint in her large, sparkling eyes, was exploring the outskirts of her village with the kind of fearless curiosity only children possess. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long, golden shadows through the trees and whispering the end of another crisp autumn day. Her village, surrounded by rolling hills and wild, untamed forest, often beckoned with mysteries waiting to be unveiled. Maya, ever the intrepid adventurer, needed no special occasion to venture far and wide, for every day presented a new labyrinth of wonders in her young mind. Her mother often chided her cautionlessly independent spirit, saying with gentle admonition, "Stay where I can see you, love. The world can be big and unfriendly." Yet, with her heart pounding to the rhythm of untold stories hiding within the tall grass and ancient oaks, Maya found solace in discovery, always drawn to the unknown like a hummingbird to nectar. It was during one such quest, while weaving through a path of auburn leaves, that she first noticed the strange form amidst the densely packed trunks, a crude stone structure barely distinguishable from its moss-encrusted age. Something about the antiquity of the long-forgotten well stirred a strange familiarity in her, as though it was not forgotten at all, but merely waiting for someone to stumble upon it. As soft breezes rustled through the foliage, a deep-rooted whisper seemed to rise with it, singing a song only Maya could hear. "What's that?" she murmured, peering into the shadows with wide-eyed wonder. Unable to resist, she moved closer, her small hands brushing the rough surface of the stones, trailing along their damp, time-worn edges. The well was old, almost mythically so, its mouth covered by creeping vines and fallen leaves. "Why do you hide?" she whispered into the darkness, as if the well might answer back with tales of forgotten times. Heart pounding with the thrill of a secret unshared by any other, Maya leaned over, drawn by an invisible pull. A thrill shot through her, mixed with a shiver of fear, an intoxicating mix, luring her ever closer to the edge. It happened in an instant, a misstep, a shivering crumble. Earth gave way beneath her small feet, her balance tipping precariously forward before the ground vanished. The hollow echo of her scream pierced the tranquil air, interrupted only by sharp gasps as she plunged downward, the world whirling into a blur of motion and sound. Fear gripped her small heart, beating frantically against her chest. Loud enough she thought all creatures in the forest could hear it. Down she fell through darkness, the stone walls brushing abrasively against her arms like coarse sandpaper, as if the well itself was trying to hold on to her. Time seemed to suspend as her mind swirled between understanding and disbelief. Her limbs flailed instinctively, grasping at nothingness until finally, with a bone-rattling thud, Maya landed in knee-deep water, disoriented and breathless. For a moment, she lay still, cocooned in enveloping silence. Her mind struggled to piece together the fragments of what had just occurred. Slowly, painfully, awareness crept back, and the chill of the water seeped into her bones. Darkness pressed in from all sides, a tangible shadow breathing down her neck. She was alone, or so she thought. Her breath came in shaky bursts, sending ripples dancing across the water. As her eyes adjusted, a sensation akin to the warmth of a gentle embrace cascaded over her weary spirit. It was intangible yet unmistakable, a presence beside her, slow and comforting, calming the tempest of fear within. It tangled gently with her thoughts, an ethereal entity that wrapped around her soul like a soft lullaby, whispered by a caring hand that remained unseen. Above ground, as dusk morphed into night, her absence became apparent back at home. Maya's mother, heart twitching with unease, called out into the growing void, her voice echoing vainly in the stillness. Soon, worried cries reverberated through the village as friends and neighbors gathered, lanterns swinging and casting wavering shadows as the search began in earnest. Words spread like wildfire, urgency and fear building to a crescendo as they ventured into the dense forest, each soul driven by the conviction that Maya must be found, must be brought back from whatever peril she faced. For Maya, time slunk by in thick, oppressive increments. With closed eyes, she drifted within herself, her mind reaching for the soothing presence beside her, the only warmth in her chasm of despair. "I'm not alone," she repeated softly, her words almost swallowed by the dank air. Each syllable was a mantra, fortifying her against an encroaching hopelessness. There was no sound other than the drip of water echoing like slow, steady heartbeats resounding through the tunnel of the well. Each droplet seemed to promise the arrival of rescue, cascading into the still pool at her feet, counting down her moments of solitude. Somewhere above, she knew, the forest must be alive with those who sought her, them speaking her name above the whispering leaves, calling it with a determination of love unyielding to the night. She imagined them as beams of starlight breaking through the canopy, piercing through the gloom with hope. And amidst the cold isolation, the unseen presence, like an angel born of ancient stone, wrapped her tighter, swaddling her fears and whispering solaces of a home she would return to. It was a promise, an inkling beyond belief, that ensured survival was not the end, but a beginning. Huddled within the darkness, Maya dared to let a whisper of hope sink deep into her heart, where the beating of drums and the cries of those who loved her grew louder, like the first light smiting the horizon. She would be found. She would be saved. Together with her ethereal guardian, she would climb back to the world above and the life she still longed to live. Maya Sant, who had never been as alone as she was in that moment. The loneliness enveloped her, a deeper chill than the frigid water creeping around her knees. Darkness was not merely a lack of light, but a living thing, palpable entity that coiled around her small frame. It whispered fears into her ears, echoing with the unyielding finality of buried secrets, the kind that only places like this well knew. Yet, in the face of such overwhelming darkness, Maya found herself seeking something to hold on to, a thread of hope amid despair. Her voice, fragile and quivering, broke the silence. "Is anyone there?" she called, her words swallowed by the well's wet stone walls. Silence stretched so long it almost felt like an answer. Maya shivered, wrapping her arms around herself, trying to quell the panic clawing at her chest. It was then she felt it, a presence gentle and serene, as subtle as the faint brush of a feather. It wasn't visible, but she sensed it, a warm, comforting glow amidst the cold shadows. It was as if the air itself cradled her, weaving around her fears with a mother's tenderness, whispering reassurance where there had been none. In this harrowing isolation, Maya began to speak to the presence, her words tumbling out in a mix of whimsy and desperation, an act to break the oppressive silence. "Do you hear me? I'm Maya. I fell down here, but I'm not scared," her voice faltered, then bolstered by quiet determination. "Well, not really scared. Someone will come, right?" The presence remained silent, its confirmation existing in the warmth that seemed to pulse from its invisible form. Maya decided to believe in it, drawing strength from the comfort she could not see but palpably felt. She closed her eyes, imaging the outside world she hoped would save her, the golden leaves of her beloved forest, her mother's comforting face, the snug embrace of her cottage where safety and warmth curled around her at night. Above, in the world denied to her, the village rallied. Maya's mother, Sonal Sandhu, ran through the meandering paths, her voice strained with a blend of fear and maternal resolve. "Maya, Maya." Her cries rose above the gentle rustle of leaves, beseeching the trees to let her daughter go. Lantern light bobbed behind her, members of the small community following with an urgency that matched her own frantic heartbeat. "Maya," her mother's voice was a trembling, desperate echo in Maya's imagination, a prayer cast out into the unseen darkness. The villagers spread through the woods, their calls weaving through trunks and branches, mingling with the evening mist. Back in the well, Maya shifted, the chill of the water seeping into her bones, reminding her of her situation's dire nature. But every time fear threatened to overtake her, the presence wrapped around her heart, curling tendrils of warmth against the encroaching cold. It was peculiar how something unseen could feel so real as though she loved and hoped desperately to return to. The stories, Maya whispered to the emptiness around her, remembering tales of the supernatural her grandmother spoke about, a world not entirely unlike this one where shadows held more than dark thoughts. "Grandma always said spirits can be good. Maybe you're one of them." Her voice quivered with a hopeful lilt at the notion of a guardian spirit. Time was slippery as it passed, indifferent to Maya's plight. Her hunger gnawed at her like a patient predator, but her thirst burned more insistently. Yet her heart held on to the promise that spread like a glow in her mind, that assurance which filtered through her dreariest moments, born from faith not entirely her own. As if responding to her need, the presence shifted, an embrace that seemed to radiate courage. It buoyed her when despair lapped too close, soothing tears before they could fall. Days bled together in a cycle of exhaustion and renewal, her conversations with the presence becoming a lifeline in isolation's grip. Above, search efforts intensified. Rescuers methodically combed the forest, and with each hour, their resolve hardened against the odds. Strong arms turned earth, hoping to bridge the gap between them and the child that needed them. Each drill and shovel drove further into the concealing earth as minds imagined, then dismissed the worst. Back in that stone cocoon, Maya's eyelids fluttered open to a soft clamor, a subtle vibration, as if the earth was coming alive above her. Hope sprang anew, its lilt uncontaminated by despair as she whispered, "They're coming. They're really coming." Her excitement was met with an almost tangible pulse from the presence, wrapping reassurance around her weary spirit. In the creeping hours of twilight on the fourth day, she heard voices, human and alive, draw near. Fragments of urgent shouts drifted down to her like raindrops breaking a drought. Maya reached upward instinctively, her heart swelling with the belief that had been her anchor. There was movement above, the clamor growing distinct. She dared to call out, her voice a clarion against stone walls. "Down here. I'm here." Her cries merged with those above, until a shaft of light pierced the gloom. The first face appeared in that luminescent cut, eyes wide and searching. Relief softened the rescuers' tense features as their eyes met Maya's determined gaze. Ropes were lowered into her prison, hope cascading through her. Despite the overwhelming reality of her circumstances, Maya understood her ordeal had tested more than just her bravery. It had proven the existence of bonds beyond the physical, colored by threads of warmth and unseen guardianship. As she was hoisted towards the light, leaving behind the place that had cradled her fears and strength alike, she spared a final whisper to the presence. "Thank you," she murmured, her heart a tapestry woven with gratitude and newfound resilience. In the embrace of waiting arms above, Maya emerged from her isolation, her cheeks stained with salt but her eyes clear and bright, testament to the unseen force that had guided her through the darkness and back to the hopeful daylight. Maya Sand, who had never felt as isolated as she did now. In the confines of the ancient well, its stones slick and unforgiving against her small body. A loneliness deeper than the frigid water that imprisoned her crept into her heart, entwining with her fears. Darkness was not merely the absence of light. It had become a living entity, whispering anxious secrets and unearthed fears within the shadows. Yet, amidst this overwhelming solitude, Maya found herself reaching inward, seeking fragments of hope that might anchor her against despair's insidious pull. "Is anyone there?" she called out, her voice a delicate strand, trembling in the oppressive silence. Her plea ricocheted off the well's dank walls, swallowed by the ever-hungry abyss. She shivered with unbidden tears, wrapping herself tighter, each movement a reminder of how small and vulnerable she truly was. And yet, in that profound darkness, she sensed it, an ethereal presence, gentle as a mother's caress, subtle yet undeniable. It surrounded her like the softest whisper, an embrace of warmth in the cold and relentless void. It wasn't visible, yet Maya felt it profoundly, a comforting glow that wrapped her fear in a cocoon of assurance. In her isolation, Maya struck up an ongoing conversation with the presence, her words a comforting mix of whimsy and anxiety, a distraction from the oppressive stillness. "Can you hear me?" she murmured, her voice steadying in the hollowed murmur of the well. "Oh, Maya, I fell down here. I'm not scared," she faltered, strengthening her resolve. "Well, maybe a little, but they're coming for me, right?" Though silent, the presence expanded, confirming itself in the warmth that invaded her bones. Embracing this intangible ally, Maya closed her eyes, imagining the vibrant life above ground, the golden hues of the forest canopy, her mother's soft smile, and the warmth of home, wrapped in stories and love that kept the shadows at bay. Above ground, the village was an orchestra of urgent determination. Maya's mother, Sonal Sandhu, tore through the thick woods, her frantic shouts cleaved the air. "Maya! Maya!" Each cry was a desperate chord, reaching out into the whispering canopy. The flickering glow of lanterns swarmed behind her as villagers matched her pace, driven by a shared urgency, each of their hearts burdened with the singular purpose of finding Maya. Maya, her mother's voice was a delicate thread reaching beyond the confines of Maya's prison, a prayer in the night. The villagers called out, voices cascading through the timbers, laced with hope that she might hear a lifeline in their continued cries. As the villagers began methodically combing the woods, hope took root within Maya's heart. She felt them in the vibrations of the earth, and in the echoing determination of drills and shovels attacking impenetrable soil. Every step and turn above ground swelled with an insistence that matched her hope. The world above was full of life and movement, despite her entrapment. Maya gathered courage from the presence that seemed to sense when dread encroached too near, intervening with a warmth that bloomed like spring in her chest. It kept her strong through the dark cycles, filling the silence with its soft assurance. The rescue efforts intensified with the passing days. Exhaustion hovered over the rescuers like a second skin as they battled harsh roots and relentless earth to bridge the gap between them and the child trapped below. The village's determination grew stronger with each passing struggle, transforming adversity into hope. Back in the well, Maya marveled at the peculiar friendship that had emerged in her solitude. As she whispered into the darkness, sharing the stories her grandmother told of benevolent spirits, the unseen presence surrounding her seemed to nod along, encouraging her belief. "Maybe you're my guardian, keeping me company," she mused with a whisper of a smile, as if exchanging secrets with a lifelong companion. Time stretched and contracted, ignoring the rhythms of Maya's existence as hunger gnawed subtly at her, the thirst a sharper burn. Yet her spirit held to the promise of the warmth she felt, the promise that despite her dire predicament, she was not truly alone. It was a notion of guardianship that went beyond words into an ethereal, heartfelt certainty. Hope returned to life, setting her pulse alight when she first heard echoes above, like distant thunder in the earth. The sound of footsteps and resonant voices drifted down the well, breaking the monotony. Her heart surged as tears welled in her eyes, filled with a mix of disbelief and joy. "They're coming. They're really coming," she exclaimed to her invisible guardian. Twilight bled into the fourth day, painting the sky in hues of hope, when voices rose nearer and clearer, fragmented shouts colliding with her isolation. Maya reached upwards instinctively, every fiber of her being stretched towards the promise of liberation. "Down here. I'm here." She poured all her longing into each call, her voice merging with the searcher's urgent cries. Finally, a beam of light dispelled the shadows, illuminating Maya's haven of endurance. A face appeared, eyes wide with relief, reflecting the assurance she had clung to. Ropes descended along the walls to cradle her in their embrace, promise cascading with them. Despite the staggering gravity of her ordeal, Maya knew she had been tested beyond mere bravery. Her journey underscored the truths of intangible bonds and the comforting strength of unseen guardianship. As she was gently pulled toward the waiting arms of her rescuers, the world received her anew, the deserving hero of her own story. She glanced once more into the well, a whisper escaping her lips meant only for the presence. "Thank you," she vowed softly, casting gratitude into the shadows that now held no fear for her, only the echo of resilience. Donning the warm embrace and cascading relief of those who awaited her above, a small but fierce warrior of hope, Maya emerged, eyes bright with clarity, shedding the isolation that had once defined her plight. Her gaze, full of determination, spoke of the unseen forces she had come to understand, forces that had carried her heart beyond darkness into dawning light, into renewal. As Maya Sandhu emerged from her confined darkness to the world above, blanketing applause from the gathered crowd enveloped her like a warm, comforting embrace that vibrated with a life she had almost forgotten. The seismic shift from solitude to salvation sent her senses spiraling, struggling to reconcile the cacophony of sound and color that now filled her reality. Her wide eyes, the deep brown of primordial forest shadows, blinked at the flood of sunlight and faces, each gaze alight with relief and joy. Her mother's shawl, once simply an accessory, became a life vest of familiarity as it enfolded Maya, drawing her into a sanctuary where whispered reassurances and tears mingled. "Oh, Maya," Sonal murmured breathlessly, brushing stray strands of hair from her daughter's face, her touch gentle yet firm, like the tethering anchor anchoring them back to each other. "I told you we'd come. I promised," she continued, her voice breaking over each syllable like waves on a calm shore. Maya didn't speak, not yet. Words felt foreign amidst the heartbeats of her parents, to whom she clung desperately, feeling their warmth radiate through her, tethering her to the earth once more. Every cell in her body absorbed their presence, the reassurance that the world she had left behind was, indeed, real and welcoming her back. The village crowded around, like moths to the light of their shared miracle, every face etched with the shared burdens of sleepless nights and weary determination. A tapestry of coexistence unfolded in expressions and murmurs weaving around them, a community that had pulled together, fueled by hope and resilience. Yet, amidst the triumphant relief, Maya held close an unspoken tale, an interior whisper only she understood. Beyond her mother's embrace, the world felt strangely loud, its noise stemming the quiet solitude she had grown accustomed to, the silent communion she shared with an unseen ally still swaddling her thoughts. As the crowd's excitement rippled, an elder, his eyes crinkling with solemn wisdom, stepped forward. He was the keeper of stories, the village's guide through folklore and tradition. His presence carried a stillness that quieted the jubilation around him. "Kaishanti," he murmured softly, a term veiled in reverence. "You encountered her, didn't you, child?" His question lingered in the air, less a questioning and more an affirming note, struck gently upon the shared rhythms of heritage and belief. Maya paused, her eyes searching the elder's face, which mirrored countless stories she too had heard in snatches of whispered tradition. Stories woven with mystery and faith, tales that had once seemed as distant as the stars, now pulsed with life and meaning. Yes, Maya responded, the single word steady and clear in her mind. Her voice was barely a whisper, but it resonated with all the truths she had felt, as powerful as the forces that had enveloped her in her darkest hours. The elder nodded, a slow descent of understanding. Kaishanti, the guardian of this place, he explained to the others, pointing with a gnarled finger that traced unseen connections in the air above them. Some say she watches over those who wander too close to the edge of this world and the next. A benevolent spirit guiding our children home. His words fell over the gathered crowd like a gentle rain, soaking into the fertile ground of shared understanding. A murmur rose among the villagers, eyes darting from the elder to Maya with renewed reverence. The very idea provoked an intangible shift, a softening of hearts already bent in gratitude, newly open to the mysteries that had revealed themselves in this unexpected miracle. Her parents exchanged glances, their faces a portrait of quiet acceptance and wonder. These myths had comforted and wreathed their lives with intangible beauty, and now their daughter stood as both testament and enigma. As Maya listened to the swell of whispers that mixed disbelief with deep-seated truths, the gentle glow of her unseen friend seemed to trace her features, now so real in her heart that it outshone any question. It wasn't only a spirit she sensed, but an echo of strength realized in her own resilience, an understanding, budding and strong, that sometimes the unseen forces are the most profound. Through the hours that followed, Maya's tale unfolded in bits and pieces, a tale steeped in courage and whispered lullabies exchanged between a small girl and her spectral protector. Words flickered from her lips like fireflies, guiding her through the retelling of her harrowing ordeal and the steadfast presence that cradled her through despair. The revelation swelled beyond the village, a story of justice and unseen redemption echoing through wider spheres, captivating minds and sparking imaginations far and wide. Maya's experience, this collision between reality and ancient guardianship, became a healing balm and a resonant call for unity in a world often overshadowed by its own doubts and disenchantments. In the following days, Maya began to see the world not just in the tangible that lay before her, rolling fields, the laughter of friends, the warmth of her family, but also in the intangibles that sang beneath it all. Love infused in silent prayers, the depth of a compassionate glance, the way the wind seemed to whisper its own song to those who cared to listen. Her journey of introspection taught her resilience unmatched and an unyielding acceptance of life's mysteries. Each moment previously overlooked now vibrated with potential. And as the seasons turned, the tale of a little girl, cradled by the unseen and delivered back into the fold of reality, became an enduring story celebrated by her community, a story of redemption and self-discovery that transcended fear and embraced the lights that flicker in all of life's shadows. To the world, Maya became a beacon of what lies beyond the ordinary sight, a testimony that sometimes it is in the depths that we discover the truest forms of grace and courage, shepherded by kindnesses unseen and eternal. As Maya Sandhu emerged from her confined darkness to the world above, blanketing applause from the gathered crowd enveloped her like a warm, comforting embrace that vibrated with a life she had almost forgotten. The seismic shift from solitude to salvation sent her senses spiraling, struggling to reconcile the cacophony of sound and color that now filled her reality. Her wide eyes, the deep brown of primordial forest shadows, blinked at the flood of sunlight and faces, each gaze alight with relief and joy. Her mother's shawl, once simply an accessory, became her anchor, drawing Maya into a sanctuary where whispered reassurances and tears mingled. "Oh, Maya," Sonal murmured breathlessly, brushing stray strands of hair from her daughter's face, her touch gentle yet firm, a tethering anchor drawing them back to each other. "I told you we'd come. I promised," she continued, her voice breaking over each syllable like waves on a calm shore. Maya didn't speak, not yet. Words felt foreign amidst the heartbeats of her parents, to whom she clung desperately, feeling their warmth radiate through her. Every cell in her body absorbed their presence, reassured that the world she had left behind was, indeed, ready to welcome her back. The village crowded around, like moths to the light of their shared miracle, every face etched with the burdens of sleepless nights and weary determination. A tapestry of coexistence unfolded in the expressions and murmurs weaving around them, a community pulled together, fueled by hope and resilience. Yet, amidst the triumphant relief, Maya held close an unspoken tale, an interior whisper only she understood. Beyond her mother's embrace, the world felt strangely loud, its noise stemming the quiet solitude she had grown to know, the silent communion shared with an unseen ally still swaddling her thoughts. As the crowd's excitement rippled, an elder, his eyes crinkling with solemn wisdom, stepped forward. He was the keeper of stories, the village's guide through folklore and tradition. His presence carried a stillness that quieted the jubilation around him. Kaishanti, he murmured softly, a term veiled in reverence. You encountered her, didn't you, child? His question lingered in the air, less a questioning and more an affirming note, struck gently upon the shared rhythms of heritage and belief. Maya paused, her eyes searching the elder's face, which mirrored countless stories she too had heard in snatches of whispered tradition. Stories woven with mystery and faith, tales once as distant as the stars, now pulsed with life and meaning. Yes, Maya responded, the single word steady and clear in her mind. Her voice was barely a whisper, but it resonated with all the truths she had felt, as powerful as the forces that had enveloped her in her darkest hours. The elder nodded, a slow descent of understanding. Kaishanti, the guardian of this place, he explained to the others, pointing with a gnarled finger that traced unseen connections in the air above them. Some say she watches over those who wander too close to the edge of this world and the next. A benevolent spirit guiding our children home. His words fell over the gathered crowd like a gentle rain, soaking into the fertile ground of shared understanding. A murmur rose among the villagers, eyes darting from the elder to Maya with renewed reverence. The very idea provoked an intangible shift, a softening of hearts already bent in gratitude, newly open to the mysteries that had revealed themselves in this unexpected miracle. Her parents exchanged glances, their faces a portrait of quiet acceptance and wonder. These myths had comforted and wreathed their lives with intangible beauty, and now their daughter stood as both testament and enigma. In the hours that followed, Maya's tale unfolded in bits and pieces, a tale steeped in courage and whispered lullabies exchanged between a small girl and her spectral protector. Words flickered from her lips like fireflies, guiding her as she pieced together the harrowing ordeal and the steadfast presence that shielded her through despair. The darkness was not so dark, she confided in her grandmother later that evening, her voice carrying the weight of newfound wisdom. Her grandmother nodded, squeezing her hands softly, her eyes glistening with the unshed tears of gratitude and admiration. The world holds more than what we see, grandmother said, her voice the lilting melody of the old stories. You know this now, child. Hold it close. Beyond the village, the news of Maya's miraculous survival spread like a beacon across the world, igniting imaginations and capturing hearts. It became a story of shadow and light, of justice and unseen redemption, that resonated far and wide in a world often overshadowed by its own doubts and disenchantments. Maya's experience, her connection with something beyond, became a healing balm, a resonant call for unity, and a reminder of the mysteries still untouched by human hands. In its wake, it left enduring questions and an openness to the possibility that life's tapestry often tangles more threads than can be plainly seen. In the days that followed, Maya began to see the world not just in the tangible that lay before her, rolling fields, the laughter of friends, the warmth of her family, but also in the intangibles that sang beneath it all. Love infused in silent prayers, the depth of a compassionate glance, the way the wind seemed to whisper its own song to those who cared to listen. Her journey taught her resilience unmatched and an unyielding acceptance of life's mysteries. Each moment previously overlooked now vibrated with potential. And as the seasons turned, the tale of a little girl, cradled by the unseen and delivered back into the fold of reality, became a story celebrated by her community, a legacy of redemption and self-discovery that transcended fear and embraced the lights that flicker in all of life's shadows. To the world, Maya became a beacon of what lies beyond the ordinary sight, a testimony that sometimes it is in the depths that we discover the truest forms of grace and courage, shepherded by kindnesses unseen and eternal. Her story encouraged many to look beyond the mere surface of their experiences, to find strength and hope in the unseen, and to believe, once more, in the magic that spirit and faith can whisper to a despairing heart.